My name is Blessed Mhlanga. I'm from Heart and Soul TV and Radio and Newsday. My question, Ambassador, from I think to all you, Your Excellencies, is that we have seen a shift in the past few years where you have been pushing towards trade, investment and engagement other than the politics. I want to understand why that specific shift. Why is the EU and its member states pushing more on trade and investment at this point?
Thank you very much for the question. We keep pushing on all fronts. You have to see that the Second Republic has decided to take another approach to reinforce re-engagement, not only to, it wasn't worked before and an idea, but it has become more realistic, more has been happening. And at the same time, you will see that we're still at the beginning in many respects. So there is interest from Zimbabwe. They're offering trade and investment in the country. But at the same time, we are still looking at the conditions, and companies are more kind of investigating. So this is the first opportunity to come to a trade fair and see for yourself what is going on. But of course, we are in favor of trade and investment, and this is also why the European market is open for Zimbabwean trade also, with no quota and no customs. So I think it's only fair to look for options, opportunities in both directions.
Maybe just to add that I think many of us have been providing development aid for many years, and I think it's a realization also that no country actually has been lifted out of poverty only with development aid. It's equally important to expand trade, private investments, domestic resource mobilization for a country like Zimbabwe in order to reach the sustainable development goals. And also the Swedish government is very much emphasizing the link between aid and trade, and that we should see how our development aid could facilitate development of the private sector and entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer, for the.
Thank you for the question. I believe also important to underline that strengthening trade, economic ties, entrepreneurship contacts, and business-to-business relations is a very important tool to strengthen political links as well. So I believe the two sides are very interlinked, and that all our efforts will be very useful to get all our main objectives that are to improve and to strengthen relations between the European Union and the Zimbabwean government and people.
Good evening, good morning. I am still on yesterday or on the next evening. Romania is the only one country from Central and East Europe present in Zimbabwe with an embassy, and we couldn't not avoid to come here. We are very happy. We are for the first time here. We have developed in these 15 years from which we are member of the European Union a lot, and we are now capable to make trade and probably also investment in the future. I have at my desk a short description of what the Zimbabwean can do to make trade with Romania. Sure, we are here also to present ourselves generally as a country, and trade is actually from what we are living. Thank you. Yeah, I think my colleagues said already a lot. From my side, I'm very happy that we can be here as Team Europe. We have 6 actually. France and the Netherlands are not here this morning, but we have for the first time 6 EU member states being present at that stand. And a word on trade as well is many people do not know that the European Union has a free trade agreement with Zimbabwe. It's called the Economic Partnership Agreement. Any Zimbabwean company can export duty and tariff-free any product to the EU. And we have figured out over the last years that while we are the 4th biggest buyer of products of Zimbabwe, and the biggest buyer of horticulture products is over 40%, and a trade volume of 700 million, we still believe that this agreement is underused. And it's underused because many companies do not know about it and do not know how to register for exports, what formalities they have to do, etc. So we count on you, but we also have organized a business seminar 2 weeks ago where all my colleagues were there as well, to make companies aware of this possibility, because we want to increase trade. And of course we would also like to sell to Zimbabwe. Now Zimbabwe has a positive trade balance. They buy more they sell more to the EU than they buy from the EU. We have no problem with that. But we have a lot to offer in terms of modernization and the topic of this fair, innovation, because we have modern machinery, and some of the machines from Italy, Germany and other countries have already been delivered to Zimbabwe, but packaging material and many other things could be delivered duty and tariff free as well. And we want companies also to know that. So yes, we are here to increase trade, and obviously trade is only possible if you have also a solid investment. Thank you.
Next question, please introduce yourself.
A very good morning to you. My name is Chengetai Murimwa. I'm a journalist with ZFM. I would like to find out from you, Your Excellencies, what investment opportunities are there in different European states that local business people can benefit from? Local business people from Zimbabwe can benefit or can do with EU countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there's everything, because we have a huge diversity in Europe, not only culturally but also economically. So if you go to different countries, you will find different strengths and different opportunities. So it depends very much on the Zimbabwean company. What are they looking for? Are they really looking for production in the EU? I think at the moment because we just heard again that there's no need to produce in Europe to benefit from the European market. So you can also trade from here, and you don't have advantages in access to market by producing in Germany or in Europe, you know. So the question is, if Zimbabwean companies sees advantages in having a production site in Europe, they are welcome, and I think they will find opportunities in most of the countries for their own business, but also for the whole big European internal market.
Yes, I believe my German colleague already said the most important thing in this matter. We have a great diversity of products in Europe, and Zimbabweans can certainly have great possibilities to gather from those products all what they need to start on their side as well, this kind of production. Of course, on our side, what is it our main support on this, main contribution, know-how? Of course, what it is needed in Zimbabwe to have productions of manufactured production is know-how, and from that I believe that only Europe and mainly the Western world is in the right position. Western world and Japan and all our economies are ready to furnish for Zimbabwean to improve.
It's very, very important to understand how the European market is functioning. The European market is called the single market. What does it mean? Everywhere in Europe has the same rules. If somebody wants to invest from Zimbabwe in Europe, actually he is getting in a huge space where the rules are the same. He can produce in one country and sell in another country. There is no difference in costs. But sure, there is a strong concurrence. There are a lot of companies. But you should not think that developed countries are not doing anything more because they are developed. There is a very, very active market with a lot of new products and with new chances for somebody who has a good product or has a good idea.
Yeah, from my side, just one word. It was somehow alluded to, but the European Union has the biggest global trade market in the world, before China and the US. We are the biggest market for China as well. So obviously we are a huge market, and anything actually could be potentially exported. Now, why do we have so much horticulture? Because very often in business life, it's about matchmaking. A company meets another company, so you are a producer, you find somebody who would like to buy your product. Now on a large scale, once we started with horticulture, then other people were thinking, if they can do it, why cannot I do it as well? And we started having more in horticulture. I believe it's also possible in other areas. Leather, for example. We were supporting the leather value chain as European Union, and I see now, I visited a leather producer 2 days ago. For the first time, they will export to remind me, Spain? To Spain, exactly. And that is a very small scale. You see in the middle of this stand we have a lot of cultural items. We support local artists. Handicraft is exposed. But for the first time, little handicraft elephant of wood are exported to the EU because we could facilitate that. So I think it's about knowing the others. Which brings me to my personal dream. My personal dream is that in one of the coming years, we will be able to also bring European companies here so that they can see what's possible here, and maybe also companies coming to the European Union to see what is possible in terms of matchmaking. Thank you.
Okay, and we've just been joined by the Deputy Ambassador to France, Mr. Benjamin Durenberger. So we have a question here. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Ndlovu from Kuluman FM. I want to ask about issues of gender equality and empowerment. What are you doing in terms of women investment, and how can women in the countryside tap onto that? Thank you.
Directed to anyone in particular? So the question is directed to all.
Thank you very much for that question. I mean, the Swedish Embassy, we are very much involved in promoting women empowerment, gender equality. We also have, when it comes to supporting startup businesses and economic development in general, we have several projects where we are putting a special emphasis on women and trying to help women to start up companies, to provide some startup capitals for women and youth in order for them to find a job and to find an income. And we also have a very good, for example, cooperation with the Ministry of Women Affairs, and we are working closely with several UN organizations in combating gender-based violence and working when it comes to providing sexual and reproductive health services to especially adolescent people. Thank you.
Maybe just to give also a wider context, Germany and other member states of the European Union have also adopted a foreign feminist policy which means that we also direct our interventions to promote at the same time gender equality. So it's a criteria for projects, for cooperation, to make sure that we get this more balanced results in this, because we know that you need both of them to be involved and to play a role. This is why this has become a topic that goes across all themes and all kinds of corporations, that we have always criteria for gender equality.
Yes, of course, also for Italy, the gender agenda is the core of our policy, and is one of the most important goals of the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. We have at the moment here in Zimbabwe 3 projects in agriculture, and all the 3 projects have gave great importance of the gender equality principles, and so we certainly will be committed to make further efforts in this field.
So I would like just to add that we together, that's why you're at the stand Team Europe, European Union, we have made available over 250 million euros only for gender equality and women empowerment in Zimbabwe. Over 250 million euros. Now, there are 2 aspects to it. All the projects which were indicated, and we together also visited, you just see it on the screen behind you, the Safe Market in Epworth, which was also funded by the European Union under the Spotlight Initiative. It starts from creating an environment for women where they can safely do business, but also maybe make little finance available to start a business, empower them to understand how to run a business, and so on. And it includes gender-based violence in a lot of aspects. Another issue we are facing is that while we are doing all that, we can talk to each other, but how do we get this knowledge that all this is available to the women in Epworth or somewhere else or here? And therefore we have just launched a campaign which is called Silani Tinemi EU With You, and this is essentially addressed at all over the country at level of youth. Let's not forget the average age in Zimbabwe is 18.4 years, so it's addressed to youth, and we have chosen an ambassador, Rumbi Takawira, you might know her, who will also support that, and she's very outspoken on it, and we hope with that we get these good projects which we are doing also across to those people who really need it.
I think we'll take a few more questions, one over there. Maybe we'll take 2 or 3 questions at once, and then we can answer them. Okay?
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much. My name is Leonard Mube from Chronicle, that's your Zim papers. A quick one to the ambassador. You alluded to the fact that we have a record 6 member states here. My question is, what's the position of the other members? Are we likely to see them coming as well in the next fair, or they are not? This is not part of their plans. Then secondly, we are 4 days into this trade fair. Any partnerships and deals that have already been, agreed on at this particular event? Thank you.
Hello, everybody here. Greetings. My question is, there are some Zimbabweans with dual citizenship. For example, I'm actually Irish, but I'm a cultural ambassador. So I'm wondering, do you have any kind of facilities because of the cultural implications? The people in Zimbabwe don't really get where we're coming from. And so do you have any facilities for people with dual citizenships to mediate? Like you were saying, how do the people in Epworth or in the rural communities get word of what you guys are doing? I think those people with dual citizenship, do you have any projects that focus on that demographic? Because I think it's an asset both to you and to the Zimbabwean or African economy?
Maybe first on the impressions of the ZITF, I would ask my colleagues to give their own impressions.
I just want to say, next year you can ask the others who will have joined us why they have come next year, not this year. For the time being, I can talk about contacts because on our stand we have mainly NGOs who are working in the country, which are local Zimbabwean NGOs, because the presence of German business is still very low due to given a lot of difficulties to make business or especially to make investments in Zimbabwe.
I actually arrived yesterday, so I don't have the full picture, but we are actually more showcasing what we are doing with our development support in Zimbabwe and focusing on economic development, as I said earlier, support to private sector development, entrepreneurship, and from that we have several projects. We have one project to the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund that provides startup capitals, as I mentioned earlier, to, for example, women who would like to start up companies, and we have some Zimbabwean companies that have benefited from this support that are present here at our stand, and in the solar sector, for example.
Well, myself as well as arrived yesterday, but I didn't have the time now to walk all the fair. But anyway, we have a stand of our Development Cooperation Agency and of our project on agriculture. They are mainly in Masvingo area and on the frontier with Mozambique. And then we have also stands of our companies. We have here the stand of We Built, which is a company building dam around the world and all around Africa and in Zimbabwe particularly. And then we have the stand also of Novamont, which is a company with agricultural and generally speaking high technological value. And also we have the stand of New Holland with tractor seller all over the world in Zimbabwe since the beginning of 1900s. So I believe we have a fairly good participation in here, and this is coming also together with the efforts of our government to strengthen deepen ties with Africa and also particularly with the Zimbabwean government. Just to mention, you know that in President Mnangagwa went to Italy last February to participate to the Italy-Africa Forum, and so from that meeting with our Prime Minister as well, we really do hope to strengthen further our ties and to have a very strong collaboration in our relation with the African continent as a whole, also in the task of our policy core relation with Africa, which is, as you know, probably the Mattei plan, which focuses on how to find out the best ways to gather an overall effort, international community effort in developing the continent.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, in terms of investment, just a couple of figures. So investment of European companies has tripled in the last year, but tripled at a low level. So it's still a low level, as the German ambassador, I think, said. So I think we are hoping there should be much more. It's also a question of investment climate. But we are confident that in the next years there could be more. So this stand also focuses on trade, as I was saying, informing companies about how they could do trade with the European Union. I alluded to that earlier. And then also what we collectively offer. Also the German ambassador said it. We have currently over 600 million euros in ongoing projects. 600 million euros, enormous, in ongoing projects. And what we show here, obviously we cannot show all these projects, it's hundreds of projects, but what we showcase here is particular support to the private sector, in particular horticulture, agriculture, and that specifically related also to the current drought crisis. So if you go around here, you will find a lot of direct support to farmers, for example, how they can plant drought-resistant crops, how they can diversify from maize into other crops, which you can also plant in dry areas. How, for example, to keep moisture, which appears in the morning in areas where you don't have water, on your field, so that you can survive, the crop can survive even if you do not have water. How can you plant drought-resistant crops which can be used for feeding livestock? I think in that area, very important, because that will help livestock farmers to, for example, feed cattle and then make the cattle go through a dry period. And so on. So there are plenty of practical examples where people can come here and can just get advice, support, technical assistance, and they learn about what is offered to them. And I think that's also part of the companies and private sector going through that fair and learning about what we have to offer. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll take our last two questions.
We don't want to ignore your question. The thing is, I think there are no specific programs, but as you said, of course, people who are moving between the two regions, between the two worlds, so to speak, are an asset. But I think you yourself probably experience how much you can do about it already on your own. But as I said, we don't have specific programs, but you find people, of course, where you need to move between the two worlds and go forth and back and have an insight on the mentalities of both sides. So it's very valuable because you have usually then two cultural backgrounds, which enables you to do different things, I would say.
Maybe just to add on the question on the diaspora. In Sweden we have it's quite a small diaspora from Zimbabwe actually. But I was working on Somalia earlier, where we have 110,000 Somalis living in Sweden. And for them we had a special program to assist, to facilitate them to start up businesses in Somalia. And also I know many of them are actually giving advice to Swedish companies about the Somali market. So I think the diaspora in general has a very important role to play.
Not to remain a little bit behind the questions about the presence here. First of all, you have to know that this fair was priority for all the embassies from European Union. We have discussed this since months, and if somebody is not here, it could be a very good reason for it. Our embassies are rather small, and in the moment in which the head of mission has to go home for 2 days, 3 days, or have to go in another country, then he cannot be here. But I can assure you that we have discussed and we have made all possible efforts to be here. After 4 days we can say this edition of the fair is a huge success, and we will send us our signals, and I think next year, beside our colleagues who are not here now, there are only 3, you could have the surprise to have EU member states which are not represented in Harare coming with their companies. So this is only to clear which is the environment with us, the ambassadors and chargés. Maybe for you to know, we are 9 resident ambassadors in Harare, and 6 are present. So it's a very, very good ratio as well.
All right, I think we'll take our last 2 questions.
Okay,
Hi, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Ratita Indlovu from National FM Radio. I can see that EU is much interested in those big fairs like ZITF, Zimbabwe Agricultural Show, and His Excellency here mentioned earlier on, if I'm not mistaken, that you are also looking into partnering with Haifa, right? But then there are other small towns that also hold these events, maybe in a smaller scale, who really want to know more about the EU. What have you done maybe to engage with maybe small towns in other provinces like Matabeleland South, Matabeleland North? Have you ever considered maybe exhibiting there? Then my second question is that is it possible for Zimbabwe to export beef to the EU ever again?
And we'll take. Okay, we'll take.
No, certainly to participate in a trade is always a very good tool to improve relations. So we certainly will consider in the future the possibility to have a participation in a smaller scale trade fair, even in other places here in Zimbabwe. Certainly, we'll be together, of course, with the whole European team of Europe. And about the second question is what about the beef? Well, for this I leave the word to our boss. And you want to say something on the first one?
Okay, so on the first question, I believe we look at something which is growing. I was here last year in ZITF for the first time with a stand. I was smaller, was already big, but smaller than that one. And I really liked it. And this time we are here with 6 member states, bigger. And maybe in the future we can also go with this kind of events in other cities. Why not? But I think it's something which has to grow. And I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important, but probably gradually. On the beef question, Zimbabwe was once one of the biggest beef exporters to the European Union. Two things happened. The first one was the foot-mouth disease, which I think killed to a large extent the value chain of beef, and then the competition from Latin America. Now what we do currently, we have set up actually centers to prevent foot and mouth disease, which are reaching out to over 70,000 farmers. So I think that is pretty much under control, but there's still a fierce competition from the Latin American market. So yesterday I had quite an interesting discussion on this beef question, and I believe the European market is changing from a price-driven market, so consumers wanting to buy the cheapest product, into a value-driven market where consumers want to buy a product and feel like they are not contributing to poverty, to environmental disasters, deforestation, and so on. They are ready to pay 33% more for a product if this product is ethically correct. And that could potentially be a niche for many countries if they produce in a sustainable way. Even if the product is more expensive, the European consumer will be inclined to buy that product because it makes them feel good about it. Nobody wants any more consumer product which contributes negatively to, let's say, the planet, the world, the people, etc.
Last question. We'll just take our last question now. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Mehengo. and my surname is Dube. I'm an artist. I'm a performing artist. So I just wanted to find out, what are you doing as the EU to support the local artists who are disabled like us? Is there anything that we can actually look forward to so that we also maybe sell our art outside in the European countries?
Well, we also do cooperation, so to speak, in the arts sector. As a German embassy, we have had a few successful cooperations between German musicians and Zimbabwean musicians, for example, over the years. And just recently, the Piano Meets Mbira, I think, was a very successful project. But of course, we cannot work with the whole industry. It's quite a big one in Zimbabwe. So we always focus on certain topics, or one or two per year, and then see what we can do about it. But you know, some of your musicians especially are very successful abroad. They go on tour in Europe, in the US, but in Germany also I've seen a number of your musicians coming to the embassy for visa, and we had a conversation and to see how it goes for them. And I'm always surprised how they have the markets in Germany, for example, in that respect. So I think also for other arts have this opportunity, but I guess usually it's about making a name at home and then move on to the next stage regionally or at a wider range internationally.
Thank you. From the European Union perspective, we all together support also culture, in particular young artists in Zimbabwe. If you go around our stand, I was telling you, you learn a lot about projects, farming, drought, etc. If you go just inside, you see all the culture. Because we have set up a project which is called Creative Actions 2. 2 million euros have been made available through the Culture Fund to support small artists, young artists, talented artists, whether they are singing, whether they are playing theater, whether they are painting, whether they are doing handicraft, whatever. And you see actually, maybe you have a chance to walk through in the middle, you just see a little collection of what has been done under Creative Actions 2. I'm very, very proud of that because I think it helps all these numerous talented young artists in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Well, as far as collaboration in the artists with Zimbabwe, the embassy has a strong relation with the National Gallery, and we have a trained restoration of painting in the last year, and we have planned to continue this year and next year as well to transfer our know-how in this specific field. And besides, traditionally, Zimbabwean artists participate in a very consistent delegation to the Biennale di Venezia, the very important international exposition of art in Italy.
Yes,
Just would like to add a word because for the French we work a lot with the French Alliance Network, so we have a French Alliance in Harare, another one in Bulawayo. We have a lot of events, we have a lot of draws program where we have, for example, movie maker, Zimbabwean one that was sent in Cannes last year. We have a movie maker that makes anime. We make a workshop in the French Alliance. We have singers, 2 singers that were sent recently, and we make cross knowledge across the specificity of all the artists. So,
Maybe I can just add, this is something that we are discussing actually at the Swedish Embassy, how we can provide more support to the arts and cultural sector in Zimbabwe. The Swedish, I forgot the name, the Cultural Council in Sweden, they have some direct support to some cultural and art organizations here in Bulawayo. And we also have when it comes to our large support of sexual and reproductive health services. We have a cooperation with a number of Zimbabwean singers and musicians that are champions for SRHR. So we have a good cooperation in that sector, but we're looking into how we can do more.
Also just to add, because we could go on a bit more, I think, about cultural cooperation. Like the French colleague said, we also have a Zimbabwe German Society that run the Goethe Center in Harare. They are also here at our stand. We want to know more about what they are doing in their work in languages and in cultural programs, concerts, events. And I would like to refer also to my colleague here, because annually we do a European Zimbabwean Film Festival, which is going to come up again later this year, I think, which is also important to know, and which takes place in Bulawayo and Harare.
You see cultures in our heart, actually.
All right, thank you for that. I think in respect of time, we're just going to wrap up the formal press conference now. But I will invite you also, please, to take a tour of our stands as well. And if you'd like to, our ambassadors will be here over the course of the morning. And if you're looking to maybe carry out any more interviews, we can see how we can best facilitate that. But other than that, if I could please invite the ambassadors to take a quick picture in the front of our stand. And otherwise, we will do a quick tour of our stands as well for the press. All right, thank you.